Welcome back to the second episode now. I'm back after watching the second episode, and show still keeps up pretty good. There's one kind of big question mark we'll talk about here in a little bit, but pretty solid. The monster action in this episode does go way down, but what you get is kind of cool still at the same time. We definitely get way more. We get some past story building, as well as some action, sort of. Well, I don't know if I call it action, but some kind of espionage kind of in the present day. But still, just still very interesting, still very fun. Pretty good watch so far. So I think I'll still give this second episode a solid 8 as well. I mean, we haven't got the big stuff to give it the 9 or 10 yet, but I think it's staying apart. The show's staying interesting. It's definitely makes you intrigued what's going on with these secrets here and stuff like that. We're gonna step up the game a little bit here and pictures. So I'm still super interested in the show. So yeah, I'm 8. I mean, worst case maybe 7.5, or maybe I'll knock off half a point just because something that don't make sense. But it's it's still in that nice good start area. Just to catch up from the last episode. So obviously that was the spider thing that from Skong Island that was chasing John Goodman, who gets saved by this crab-like thing. I guess this is supposed to be similar to the thing from the animated show. I think there was some crab things there, so I'm guessing that's what this might be trying to be. And that's where they fought. So yeah, so just, since I didn't have that in the first part. So pretty much our past story involves these 3 characters, which I will correct one of my things from the last one. I wasn't sure. I guess I did miss the flash pop-up of what the year was. Apparently it was 1959. So in this episode we jump back to 1952. Going to be a lot of timey-wimey stuff here to follow. And I could see that possibly being a turnoff for some people. I'm trying to keep up the storylines. I'm fine with it. I was able to keep along. So, where we left off with these guys was 1959 in the first episode. So here it jumps back to 1952, and we're kind of seeing how they all meet each other. Leland here, I remember his name. He gets into like a bar fight. I guess he sees some other soldiers trying to be bullying and attack. This is in the Philippines. They're in Manila, and they're kind of harassing a female. And I guess he steps in to defend the girl's honor. So he gets sent on an escort mission of a scientist, and we see him arrive. And he's looking for a scientist, and they gotta play the whole little macho thing a little bit because she says, "Yeah, you're looking for me," and he's like, "Oh no, maybe we can get a drink later," or something like that. And like he doesn't expect her to be the scientist, so and stuff like that. And I'm sure some people now today society will cry about that, but that's an old trope that's been in a lot of this old stuff like this. It's not the first. I mean, hell, Godzilla Final Wars kind of did a similar joke to this, and that's from like 2005, people. Where you were supposed to go meet up with protect a scientist, and that's actually really pretty much this whole storyline. He had to escort the scientist, and she was like super hot supermodel chick, and he couldn't believe she was the actual scientist. Or he downplayed how that he thought she was going to be a big nerdy dude or something like that, if I remember correctly. So we have their introduction to meet, and they're chasing down some radiation thing spikes that they've been getting. While doing some tests, I can't remember her name at all, but I remember his name was Rhonda. His last name was Rhonda, at least. He comes out of the wood, out of the jungle, filming, and he's a cryptozoologist hunting animals that don't exist, like the Bigfoot hunters and stuff like that. He's tracking the same thing, so they're both chasing the same thing. And well, this our military guy doesn't buy any of it. He doesn't want this guy around, so she dismisses him. So he goes to take off. So he drives off in the jeep and stuff like that. While these two are investigating, they find a spoilers. Obviously, if you're watching this, you should have always you shouldn't be caring about that. But they find this ship in the middle of the jungle. Meanwhile, he finds some trail, this light show going on, so he turns around to go find them. We'll get to that because actually, so that's what's going on in their storyline. Then our modern day storyline is pretty much these three people here. This is the brother and the sister I mentioned, obviously, if you haven't watched it, that had the same dad but different families, and then she's kind of his girlfriend, and she's the tech person. And they're all on the run from these two. These two are Monarch agents that are found out, were alerted to them trying to break into the Monarch file, so they're going after them. So the episode starts with her getting ready to get on a train just because she's ready to go home. She's just, her character kind of keeps jumping back and forth a little bit. So she's wanted to get answers. She goes there. She finds the family and she wants to leave. Then he pulls her back in with some of these files, and she wants to know what's on these files and all this stuff like that. And we know the first episode ended with her finding a picture of her grandma. This episode, it opens up with her ready to take off and come home again. That part don't really make a lot of sense because the last episode ended with her knowing that her grandma's now connected. So why would all of a sudden she wouldn't take off without getting the answers? But I guess to push the story forward. So that's a little bit of I didn't even think of that one. So there's a little issue. There's a little story oopsie in the story there. But while she's there, she runs into our Monarch people who try to get a hold of her and tell her to get if they need the files, or she's not in trouble, but she will be if she doesn't help. She tries to run. The female guard grabs her, throws her into a car. They try to do the bag over the head kind of thing, typical espionage kind of stuff. She freaks out, has some PTSD from the 2014 thing, ends up flailing around in the car, kicks the driver who causes her to wreck the car, and she's able to get out and escape. So then she's roaming around, she's lost her bag, her passport, her money, all that stuff. She goes to a police station. The police officer doesn't believe her story and try and play it off, and is acting kind of suspicious. He says she has to go to the American Embassy, and he's calling at the number, and he's acting like, kind of giving that creepy he might be in on something, like on a bigger picture spot with Monarch or something like that. So she takes off running from there. Ends up at her place where she was working on the. Also, there's a part where he finds a video film from the Philippines, so we haven't seen what that is. That's probably the film that we see being recorded by the other guy the whole time of this episode. So it's probably the footage that he finds there. But so she finds her way to this person's house, but the Monarch people were there trying to get all the files, so she's hiding in another room. Grabs her, they sneak out and take off. Message him about trying to get a hold of him. He arrives home, and then the Monarch agents show up at his house, and the mom plays a little diversion so he can get away and escape. Before he escapes, he's supposed to be getting the files to give to him, and she's distracting him. The Monarch guy's looking at the pictures. He sees the picture of their dad, and kind of freaks out. So obviously their dad is somebody that Monarch is aware of, and stuff like that. So Monarch knows who their father is. But the mom creates a diversion so he gets away, and then they finally all meet up and try to figure out what they're doing. Meanwhile, he's been putting together the pieces that his dad knew him, was connected to him, and he finds out where he's in a retirement home. So that's where they decide to go, is to go find the character that's still alive. They find him. He starts talking about things. And apparently there's a lot of surveillance here. And it turns out that this is a Monarch house arrest kind of thing where they're keeping him under lock and key there. And so he snips off the ankle bracelet, throws it in the leg, and says, "All right, man, let's go." Oh, he also confirms what I said at the end of the first episode of my recap was I think their father's still alive. He pretty much says it, pretty much brings that on puts that on the table too. It's like they never found the body, never this. It's like who says Monarch doesn't got him put away? Let's find out what happened to your father. So he kind of alludes that there's maybe your father's not dead. So definitely, I totally called that. And that's where their storylines ends with them deciding if they're going to take off running with Kurt Russell. Which will bring me to the other thing. So I found out that obviously it was 1959, then they jump back to 1952. Their storyline takes place in 2015. 62, 72, 82, 92, 2002, 2012. This is 63 years later. So Kurt Russell's currently 72 years old. He was born in 1951. But supposedly he's playing a guy that's like 80s, 90s? Because, I mean, at best you might be able to push it. He's 20? I don't think you can push it. I don't know if you can try to claim he's 18 or 19. At the lowest, he could be 18. He's working, he's in the Army. He's just doing some stuff. So he's been in the Army for a while. And so him being 18 is a stretch. At best, you could say he's 20. So he'd be like 80 in his mid 80s here at the present day. So they're adding like 10, 15 years to Kurt Russell's actual age. Okay, I guess it's a little bit of stretch. Seems like a pretty good kind of a stretch there, but okay. That's kind of a big flub for me there. I think they doing way too big of a time gap there. Maybe they should have put it in the 60s at least or something like that. But so obviously why I was wrong in the first episode was they're trying to continue the Monarch stuff off their Skull Island. This is obviously their storyline is obviously not theirs. Their storyline has obviously happened before Skull Island, before the John Goodman stuff. So guess they're setting up that these guys are the beginnings of Monarch. So they mentioned they dropped Monarch in the first episode, which would have been 1959, and they all just finally these three finally just meet right here. All right, so their storyline, like I said though, their storyline ends with him deciding if they want to take off and go investigate together. Then we jump back to these guys. These guys' storyline. So obviously I mentioned that they found a boat that was in the jungle, and Leland's military guy saw the radiation trails in the sky and turned around to go run back to him. So it turns out, as we investigate the boat a little bit, that our guy here on the end, Bill, Rhonda, I don't remember his name, Bill, was stationed on this boat outside Pearl Harbor, and it was hit something. And they tried to claim it was a Jap sub, but he felt it was something else, and he was the only survivor from the boat. So they're investigating. So he finds his old locker and stuff with some of his stuff, and then they go into one of the rooms, and it's got all this organic junk all over the place, and then they find all the dead bodies, pretty much all like trapped inside this organic stuff, So they decided they've got to get off there, and then they find there's more of this organic stuff dripping from things, and then something starts attacking the sides of the walls of the ship, and you hear some roars, and a couple times it will break its claws through, and you can see the claws scratching around. So it's obviously here's our monster for the episode. Then our military guy shows up as a hero because Well, and when the monster's breaking through a ladder, big metal ladder thing falls on him and he can't get out. So our hero shows up and they're able to get him free. They run out of the hole. The ship start taking off running as the ship's falling down. They turn around and what breaks out of the side of the ship is this thing. It's kind of like a bat dragon thing. It chases after them. They dump into a ditch to dodge it, and of course the one guy says, "Oh my God, it is a dragon," because he mentioned he was, chasing a dragon. There's stories of dragons. That's why he was there investigating. And it goes and lands. So this is our first real Titan. This is our first Titan that they've seen. So it pretty much shot ends with it on the doing a monster pose on the boat there. So we get our first Titan, for I guess the natural story canon, the first Titan. This is going to be, I guess, what forms Monarch from their viewing of this. So it's pretty solid. It's not huge, but like I said, the monster part's it's a very small monster part in this one, so it's definitely not big on the monster action. So that's why I could maybe go down to 7.5 on it. Storyline was pretty well, except for yes, there's a couple of flubs in the story with like the age gap there and the one girl wanting to take off. That don't make sense. I'd also bring up in the first episode when these guys were in a car driving. It almost kind of hinted like these two had a past relationship, but now she was with this guy. So we see how they meet, and then he shows up. So maybe there was nothing here. So because kind of hinted that there was a past relationship with these two, but maybe not. And obviously we know that these two have kids because our kids are going to be connected to these guys. So all right, so I guess that was a misread in the first episode on that so I imagine we would probably jump back up forward in time in the next one to catch back up to 1959. Maybe see what happens with this bug scene because, like I said, I hard time believing they've killed her off from that scene because she sounds like for this storyline she's a very vital character as we found out there. So I'm assuming she's somehow survived the bug attack thing. So we get some Skull Island returning guys, and we get some new Titans. So unknown if we're going to see any known players here. I don't know if they'd go out and get rights for anybody else, but would we see? Is there going to be anything with Rodan or Mothra? I thought I heard rumors of Mothra. I think it'd be cool if they at least have Mothra show up. Just to do something with Mothra. Rodan's obviously in a volcano and Ghidorah is in ice. But some Mothra stuff would be kind of cool. But I guess from here we get one episode per week. So I guess I have to wait a week for episode 3. There's 10 episodes total. But definitely enjoyed the start of the show so far. It is building the world and setting up. So I think they're doing a good job with the world building. And some people might not like they're doing this whole these guys running from Monarch kind of thing. Monarch kind of feels like bad guys, which doesn't feel like that's what they were at the time. Because in King of the Monsters, they don't seem very evil. What was I? So I don't know where that storyline's going exactly. That's it. So, but so I guess we're going to go on a track to find their father, which I guess will end up leading to. And I'm guessing these two are going to bond. These two are going to rekindle. That's the obvious storylines here. That's obvious. Like I said, this is obvious. That's what's going to be their part of their storylines. And some people might not like the fact that we're dealing with the young kids storyline, but that's fine. Still like it. I'm really happy with the show so far. Good start, and stick around. I'll make this, probably put this in its own playlist. I may just keep these two. Let's see. It's gonna be a pretty long video if I put them together, but maybe I will. Maybe I'll put them together and make it a playlist. And we'll be back for more reviews on the further episodes. See if it keeps good. Of course, we also got somewhere in the middle of watching the show. We're gonna have our Godzilla -1 release that I will make a video for as well. Obviously, of course, I will. Until next time, Cachorro.